Winterizing your lawn sprinkler system. Is this a job that you should do yourself? I would say probably not. I would say call the guy, pay the $100, he'll come with the tow behind compressor and he'll get it done. But if you're like me and you live at the intersection of cheap, stubborn, and weird, here's what you do. You want the breaker to the irrigation pump off, or somehow you want to valve off the water source, but you want to leave the controller operating so that you can operate the zone valves without pushing water in through them, because we're instead going to be pushing air through them to blow out the water. That's the whole purpose of what we're doing here, to make sure that those lines don't freeze and burst over the winter. So I've connected a garden hose to the service valve, which you should always have somewhere in your system. This one is underneath a cover near the valves in the manifold. So I've got my garden hose connected and I have opened this up. The purpose of this is to blow air through it. This is a job for a lot of airflow. And that's why the irrigation guys rent or own a big tow behind compressor that can move a lot of air volume. Your standard home compressor, whether it's a new one or a slightly older one, can produce a lot of pressure, but probably doesn't move anywhere near the optimal amount of air volume to get this done. So what we're going to do is let this compressor recharge. I think this is a 30-gallon tank. Right now it's up to 120 psi, and we're just going to blow a tank full of air through each zone. I've got 4 big zones on my system, and these big zones mean that you need even more airflow, so I really feel like I'm probably not anywhere near sufficiently blowing these lines out, but there's a lot less water in them than there would be otherwise, and I haven't had a freeze up, so somehow what I'm doing is kind of working. So at the controller, remember the pump is off, but the controller is still on. Let's do zone 3. Zone 3, water 1 zone now. And now my garden hose I've connected to an adapter, which I made from a washing machine hose. So you have garden hose female, and then I have a barbed male air fitting, so that when I connect this, now we're blowing air into zone 3. And you can see how quickly the gauge pressure is dropping. That's because this hose is basically open. There is no restriction. It's just blowing all that air through. And in a moment, you'll hear the compressor kick back on, and you'll see it too. All right, so we're just gonna let this go until there's almost no air left in the tank. And meanwhile, zone 3 is the backyard here. And so this is the closest head. You can kind of hear it. It's forced some air out, but that big spray of water and air that you see when the pros do it, we're not getting that. We just don't have the volume. Leaving this connected past this point isn't going to do anything for us because the volume of air coming off the pump is so minimal. All we're going to do is just use the air that's in the tank, and then we're going to disconnect and let that recharge. We can hit each zone more than once. I usually do each zone a couple of times, 1, 2, 3, 4, then I'll go back around 1, 2, 3, 4 and put a tank full of air at high pressure through the lines, and that forces most of the water out. So you can see most of the time your homeowner is just not going to have the right equipment to do this job. So even if you have the knowledge and you're, again, cheap, weird, and whatever the other thing was I said, stubborn, that's the story. So anyway, happy winterizing. We'll see you in the spring, and we'll see if any of my sprinkler lines blow. Bye.